Welcome to the Vault Podcast and Reviews, where music still matters. You can check out all our shows at YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Podomatic. Please rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe. Also, make sure to check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you like what we're doing and you'd like to contribute to help us keep the show going, check out patreon.com/The Vault. We're firing it up with Rick James here. Of course, that's the name of the album. 1979 release, third studio album, 8 tracks. Robbie, you ready to do this?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Fired up, right?
Fired up! You're going to hear that a lot. We're going to talk about those backing vocals. That's some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
you like Rick James, sure. I know you do.
Oh, I love Rick James. And if you don't like Rick James, you're missing out. You're just letting yourself down.
I think he's really underrated. I think a lot of people just like to joke on him because of the Dave Chappelle thing.
Because of the Dave Chappelle thing, you know, and I even wrote down, cocaine is a hell of a drug. You know? But he's on it. Like, I mean, he may be high as hell on cocaine, but, I mean, he doesn't miss a beat.
You know, this is something we like to do on the kind of shorter albums. I said this only has 8 tracks, so we're going to go just kind of track by track on this. I've got them down. Opening track, Fired Up. Wow. Can it get any better than this?
No.
Oh, but it can. Because the next one is Love Gun. Man, talk about like super catchy guitar riff, and man, it just sounds good.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, the guitar riffs, the horns, the bass lines. I mean, he's got it, man. I mean, he was the man back then, and so you know it's gonna be good.
Next track, Loving You's a Pleasure. This is my favorite song. Man, super catchy bass line and like the synth electric keyboard stuff going on.
Oh, that's one of the ones I wrote down for my favorites as well.
There we go on the same page. Agree. There are so many different instruments they used in combination on this album to make some of these sounds. It's just amazing. So we're going through these so quick. It's like track 1, awesome. Track 2, awesome.
Awesome, right? I mean, it's Rick James, bro. If you listen to Rick James, a whole Rick James album, and then afterwards you're like still in a bad mood, you have no soul.
You know what? As much as I like downer music and depressing music just for the sake of it, because I like it, I got to agree with you. Yeah,
it's feel good music, man. I mean, he's funky. He's got the vocals. Plus, you know, by this point, everybody knows a little backstory on him. He's a cocaine head. He did all these crazy things, but I mean, that's what it was at that time. You know, I mean, when did this album come out? In 1979. I mean, so you can't hate on dude for being high as hell on cocaine. But honestly, that probably put him in the studio and gave more enthusiasm and gave him more passion. And that's one thing that, like, you know, get off subject a little bit. Fleetwood Mac wanted to dedicate one of their albums to their cocaine dealer, but their record label was like, you can't do that.
Well, what about James Brown?
Oh, James Brown.
There you go.
Answer my pants and I need to dance. You know what I mean? Like, that dude was crazy. He was crazy. But he's no Rick James.
All right, next up, Love in the Night. This is the first blemish on the album, and it's just because it's the total classic R&B sound, and I'm just not typically a fan of that stuff. What do you think of this one?
Actually, what I got down here about Love in the Night is it's a nice change of pace. It's from the rest of the album.
That is a good point. Yeah.
It's more of a love song. He's coming from the heart on it. And so that's kind of what I had about that it was a nice change of pace compared to the rest of the album, you know? So I felt like it needed to be on this album just to kind of break up the, not monotony, but like, you know, just kind of break up what else he was doing on the album, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you go to a concert, you know, they open up with, you know, whatever kind of band or whatever kind of music it is. They always open up with a really, really fast, upbeat, popular song. And then they kind of slowly slow it down, and then they get back going again. That's exactly what happened, because Come Into My Life, the next song, man, that opening bass line, catchy.
Oh, absolutely. All the bass lines are catchy.
Yeah, that's something I'll get into later. That it's, oh my goodness, this album.
Funk. It's funk. It should be bass prominent. You know, I mean, that should be.
But there are a lot of funk albums I've heard where you can hear the bass, but it's not so catchy. Yeah, Come Into My Life, that kind of brings it back. And then we get a little weird again with Stormy Love. What do you think about this one? It's even hard to describe.
I'm in the same boat, bro. I don't really know how to describe that. It's a great song. I mean, honestly, like from beginning to end, minus this or that. It's a pretty solid album, like from beginning to end. And honestly, a lot of these songs I had never heard by Rick James, because most of the Rick James I listen to are like greatest hits and that kind of thing to get the songs that I want to hear. And I like being able to hear these songs that I've never experienced before. So that was a really good one. Love in the Night was my second favorite song on the album.
You know what? I surprisingly liked this one.
I felt that we could be in pretty much agreement on this album. But for real, I mean, Rick James is the man. Rick James is a pimp. And his music reflects that. And so does his lifestyle. Or so did his lifestyle.
So let me jump back to these last two tracks real quick. Stormy Love, it's boring, and it's like that spoken word, kind of just over this weird music. Whatever. I didn't think it was bad. It was just kind of caught me off guard, kind of like, what is this? And then
I didn't like that song, just because it wasn't singing. It was just basically like spoken word, but it wasn't spoken word poetry. It was just him probably being high on cocaine and just going off, just talking on stuff. But you can't hate the dude, man. He's a legend, and I mean, he's a brilliant artist for his time.
That last track, When Love Is Gone, it's like a slow jazz with a little bit of elements of funk, but it's slower, like a smooth song.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, what I wrote about that song, because that's another one I wrote down and took note of, was When Love Is Gone. It's great. He straight gets it on that song. I mean, he straight sings his ass off, and the guitar solo on it was awesome as well.
Normally, I don't like those slower ones like that. Especially, I know it kind of picks up a little bit, like you said, with the solo, the more that it gets going.
Right.
But overall, like even with just a couple of blemishes, what a fantastic album. So overall, great composition. You actually brought that up. I had it written down, but put the way that the songs are kind of placed together, and then the way that the songs are placed together. So many instruments intertwining with each other, combined with the awesome background vocals. What'd you think of those?
Oh man, the backup female vocals.
Yeah.
Was one thing I mentally made note of, because they're just so good. I mean, you get those. It's like listening to. As far as the backup vocals go, it's like listening to the oldies. You know what I mean? Like the Motown type stuff. You know what I mean? Because they always had those females singing backups for the groups, and I really really like that. It adds more of a depth to the album.
I have this mental picture every time when they sing and Rick James isn't singing. He just kind of like. Lets his guitar hang from his neck and starts like flexing like Jesse Ventura.
Oh yeah.
And then goes back to playing when they get done singing.
For sure. Like he's like, yeah, flexing. What's up? Listen to them sing because they're singing for me. I'm about to come back.
That's exactly right. Yep.
For sure. Really thoroughly enjoyed this album. I personally just really like Rick James because...
Yeah, I can tell you right now, we're going to do a review on every single Rick James album before it's all said and done.
Definitely. I'm pumped about that. So
some are better than others, I'll tell you that. There's a couple of them that are questionable, but...
Yeah, that's because cocaine is a hell of a drug.
It's a running theme. All right, so musically, I mentioned bass lines, and it's kind of a foundation of funk is bass.
Mm-hmm. And, absolutely. It should be prominent. It should be up front.
And it is on this one. And the bass lines intertwine really good together with like the keyboards and the electric piano, all those like electric instruments they were using.
He even uses some really sweet synth in some songs, and I really like that as well. I wasn't expecting him to do that because I was expecting it to just be like, prominent bass lines and him just killing it singing, but yeah, no. Overall, I really dug this. Can I ask you this instead of you asking me this?
Do it.
What did you give this album on a 5 scale?
Hey, we're not there yet. I'm still talking about how good it is.
Right. Fair enough, man. I'm jumping ahead. I don't think I can praise this album anymore.
Well, it's not going to get the best rating in the world because, well, I'm super stingy on my ratings, but,
Yeah.
we're talking about music. When I listen to metal, when I listen to classic rock, when I listen to blues, anything that's, you hear me talk about the riff, and I'm total sucker for the riff. If there's a good song, I can get on the riff, even if it's an AC/DC boring riff.
Right.
That riff, if I'm really into it, can carry that whole song for me. And when you think of Rick James, that's not what you think of. But this album definitely has some catchy riffs. They're not heavy. They're not classical.
They're funky,
fast. Yeah, exactly, and they fit perfect. It's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of like ZZ Top in a way. Like how their guitar riffs are not very fancy, but they just go really well with the song.
They got a great groove.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
They drag you in, and you can't help but move to the music when you hear it. Whether you're getting up and dancing and singing into your hairbrush in the mirror, but I mean, like, you're getting up, you still got to like kind of groove to it, I mean, you get that feeling in your body, and you just kind of, oh yeah, I'm feeling this, and that's how I feel about Rick James.
All right, so now we can get into the ratings, and I'll just jump right into that.
Yeah.
I'm giving this album on the Vault Star rating system, 1 star being the worst, 5 stars being the best, 4 1/4. And the reason it doesn't get any higher than that is because there's only 8 tracks, first of all. That's too short. Now, again, not the rapper. I think I'm going to make that reference every single time I say that. But
maybe we should just do. We got to do a too short.
Just a too short album.
A too short album. Like, get in where you fit in. That's what you guys will hear next.
So one thing, I complain a lot of times about how short some of these older albums are, but then you have to think, like, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, some of these artists were putting out an album or 2 albums every single year. So when you keep that into perspective, it makes more sense. So, if you're only getting 8 tracks or 6 tracks or whatever, because you only had about a year to wait, and you're going to get that many songs, if not more.
Well, that, and a lot of the songs on these 6-track albums are 5 to 6 minutes sometimes. So you're getting your time out of the album, whether the tracks may not be as many. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I really liked the album. I honestly, I couldn't tell you why I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 because, I enjoyed most of it, but I feel that, Rick James has a lot better albums than this particular one. So I'm going to rate this album particular, not Rick James, but this album at a 3.5 out of 5.
So that averages out just to a little bit below a 4. I think that's not too bad.
That's great.
I think there's a lot better Rick James songs, but as an album, I don't know. We'll get there. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But definitely going to be doing all the Rick James albums that we can get a hold of.
Absolutely.
So, guys, again, check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and like, subscribe, share, and comment, rate, and review on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic. And check us out on Patreon. If you like the shows, please consider giving even $1.50. Believe it or not, that actually will go a long way. You have no idea. And we're grateful for any support. So until the next review, check all that out, and we'll see you guys later.